Hi folks, welcome to lecture number 2 in chapter 6 about the solid and liquid dielectrics. We'll be talking all about solid and liquid dielectrics. Yesterday, or in the first lecture, we talked about some properties, and then we dielectric properties of insulating material. We covered this, and rho is nothing but specific insulation, uh, yeah, specific insulation resistance, or it is also called resistivity. Specific insulation resistance, rho insulation, which is inverse, which is equal to 1 by conductivity of the conductivity of the dielectric, obviously. So then we also learned that the conductivity is a function of temperature, it is a function of the voltage applied, and it is also a function of the physical conditions of the dielectric. And it varies. The conductivity varies over the time when you apply a voltage across the dielectric. So these measurements prove that the conductivity, which determines the specific insulation resistance of the dielectric, depends upon the temperature of the dielectric and also upon the electric field applied across the dielectric. Then this schematic determines how the conductivity is dependent upon the time of application of the field or the voltage. So initially the conductivity is very high, but then something changes within the dielectric, which are determined by the structure of the dielectric, molecular structure of the dielectric. And then it has a plateau, which is equivalent to when you apply AC field. This is the kappa DC. This is characteristic when you apply DC voltage to the field, to the dielectric, and when you apply AC voltage or the AC field, that would be the value given in the region B. And then further, what happens that there is kind of a turmoil within the dielectric, and the conductivity, the dielectric restore its insulating properties. So the conductivity goes down, and then over the longer period, a few minutes, as you can see, 10 to the power of 3 seconds and above, the conductivity stabilizes to a plateau. And the conductivity obviously would also depend upon the humidity and impurities, that means quality of the dielectric itself. And in any dielectric, the humidity content. So insulation resistance is a function of so many things, as we learned. It is dependent upon temperature, it is dependent upon the applied electric field, it is dependent upon the time for which the field is applied, it is dependent upon the condition of the dielectric, it is very much dependent also upon the humidity content of the dielectric. So that this measurement, conductivity or insulation resistance measurement, there are instruments. This gives you an idea what is the condition of the dielectric. This is one of the properties. So next, we will, yeah, another parameter of all insulating materials is termed as permittivity of the insulating materials. Permittivity of the insulating material uh, found by insulating materials in the network is the see the insulating materials. What do they form in the network between the two electrodes? When you put a dielectric, what is formed? Nothing but capacitance. We have learned about it. And the capacitance is always accompanied with some losses within the dielectric, because the losses are within the dielectric. Capacitance is formed by the dielectric. And the magnitude of losses in a dielectric or in a capacitance, capacitor, you can say, is determined by its characteristic. One of the characteristics is nothing but the permittivity, epsilon, and the specific insulation resistance, rho insulation of the material, or determined by, influenced by permittivity also, and other structure of the dielectric. Epsilon is given as epsilon is equal to eta, epsilon naught, epsilon r is a product. You know what is epsilon naught is known as the absolute permittivity of the dielectric. Absolute permittivity. The total permittivity is epsilon, and it's equal to epsilon naught into epsilon r. Epsilon naught is the absolute permittivity, and epsilon r is the relative permittivity. And epsilon naught, you must have learned, is also known as absolute permittivity that offered by vacuum. So when between the two electrodes there is vacuum, the permittivity of the vacuum is epsilon naught, and epsilon naught, you have learned, is equal to 8.854 into 10 to the power of minus 12 farads per meter. So that's how it is defined. It is the farad per meter. The farad is the unit for capacitance per meter. So 10 to the power of minus 12, this is the absolute permittivity value, numerical value. And the relative permittivity, therefore, will work out to be epsilon r will work out to be equal to Cx by C naught. What do they represent? The Cx and C naught. You take a capacitor. Normally it is taken, it is defined for a standard capacitor. You can make a standard capacitor having a uniform field between two electrodes, and you measure its capacitance. When there is no dielectric in it and there is vacuum, you can say, you will measure a certain quantity of capacitance, C naught. Then you fill the standard capacitor with the dielectric you are interested in. It could be any dielectric. Best to measure if you have a standard capacitor between two parallel plate shaped electrode system. You fill it up, for example, an oil. You will measure a different capacitance, and that capacitance, let's say if it is Cx, x is the for the given dielectric, So epsilon r is equal to Cx by C naught. What does it convey to you? The vacuum has got a capacity, relative permittivity equal to 1. Not only vacuum, most of the gases also have almost equal epsilon r, the relative permittivity, almost equal to 1. But when you fill it up with a given dielectric, the insulating material may have varying magnitude of relative permittivity. And that varying permittivity will give rise, varying permittivity obviously more than 1. So that will give rise to higher value of capacitance found between the electrode system you have taken. So the ratio, the quotient, gives you the epsilon r value. And the epsilon r value could be anything greater than 1. And people have measured hundreds, even 450. I know some materials have epsilon r. So you can imagine, greater is the epsilon r value, more of capacitance will be formed in the given volume between the two electrode system. And epsilon r has no unit because it's a ratio, Cx by C naught. So it's a number. You call it relative permittivity, or also you call it permittivity number. Now, epsilon, the permittivity of a dielectric, it is interesting to learn, is a function of its temperature, the frequency of the applied voltage, and magnitude of the applied voltage. So epsilon is a function of theta, f, and u, whereas epsilon naught, the absolute permittivity, is a constant, that is of vacuum, a value. But epsilon, that means epsilon r actually will change with respect to the temperature of the dielectric, with respect to the frequency applied to the dielectric of the voltage U, and also it will change the magnitude of applied voltage. So when epsilon r changes, that means epsilon is not a constant. Only epsilon naught is a constant. Absolute permittivity epsilon naught is a constant, but epsilon r is not a constant. Therefore, epsilon is not a constant. You might have read in schools or in some books that epsilon permittivity constant. It's wrong to say ever, always, that permittivity is not a constant. It is a function of the condition of the dielectric temperature, frequency, and magnitude of the voltage applied. You can measure, and all these things, epsilon r forms the capacitance, as we learned just now. So you can, when you apply, when you take a capacitor, you increase the temperature of the capacitor, you can measure difference in the capacitance formed by the capacitor. If you, the capacitance formed would always depend upon the frequency of the voltage applied and also the magnitude of the voltage applied. Therefore, epsilon r, which is not a constant, makes the permittivity to be not a constant. So never say permittivity constant, just say permittivity. I hope you got this. Is a very, very important point, and often not understood properly. Now, when you apply uh, a voltage to a dielectric, something happens within the dielectric because of its molecular structure. And the molecular structure of every dielectric is different. And there are often when I am talking about, let's refer to mainly solids and liquids. They may be free charge particles made out of atoms, ions, and molecules. That is, you can say, there is some kind of an inherent charge within the dielectric present in the form of atoms, ions, and molecules. So there is a disturbance, you can say, you can call it to be disturbance, which takes place within the dielectric, the molecular structure of the dielectric when you apply voltage. And the phenomenon of interaction between the applied electric field, external electric field, and the inherent, that is inbuilt charge carriers present in the form of atoms, ions, and molecules is known as polarization. You might have heard about this phenomenon. What is polarization? Polarization depends, I mean, it's a, you can say, study. Polarization is the study of the phenomenon known as polarization of interaction between the applied external electric field on the dielectric and the inherent charge carriers present within the dielectric. So it's a vast field. Physicists have been trying to learn about this field since a long time. So we can define it numerically, I mean analytically, we can define the polarization. So polarization is the measure of the extent of the extent of polarization or polarizability which takes place within the dielectric is determined by epsilon r. This is something very interesting. That means the force exercised on the basic structure, the force exercised on the basic molecular structure by the electric field applied across the dielectric measures the magnitude of the force, you can say, is measured by the extent, is known as, you can say, is the measure of the force is called polarization or polarizability, which actually depends upon the relative permittivity of the dielectric. So relative permittivity of all the dielectrics, epsilon r, plays a very important role in electrical network. I mean, you may have very small capacitance with very high relative permittivity dielectric, which will give rise to a very large value of capacitance, and you may have some capacitors which is made out of dielectric. For example, air also forms capacitance. The magnitude of the capacitance formed by air as a dielectric will be minimum because air has got a relative permittivity, a minimum relative permittivity, that is 1. And as I said, relative permittivity of some materials is of the order of in 100 in number. So the uh, uh, for vacuum, electric field, electric flux density for in vacuum is, let's say it is d naught. So the vector d naught is equal to, is, you know, this equation is given by epsilon naught into E. Epsilon naught for vacuum will be only epsilon naught because epsilon r is equal to 1. When the vacuum is replaced by an insulating material, let it be solid, liquid, or gas. In the case of gas, as I said, the effect will be less because the gaseous dielectrics, most of them have very close epsilon r to be very close to 1. Between the electrodes, the electric flux density can be given in this way. That is, when you filled it up, when you replaced, you can say, vacuum with an insulating material. So it can be written as electric flux density to be equal to flux density to be equal to of the insulation epsilon naught into epsilon r E. Epsilon r, the relative permittivity of the dielectric, comes into picture because it is more than 1. Now, the increase in electric flux density, let's call it to be as dP, is caused by polarization in the dielectric. And hence, dP is equal to d insulation minus d naught. And as when you put the values, the quotient dP by d naught, that means the electric flux density in the dielectric with with the dielectric material divided by the electric flux density when there is vacuum is will be equal to epsilon r minus 1. So that means the change in electric flux density of the dielectric is determined by epsilon r. And you can imagine for most of the gaseous dielectrics which have epsilon r is equal to 1.00 something. So you can say 1. What do you conclude? Suppose you take dP by d naught, that means dP for gaseous dielectrics. What would dP by d naught work out to be? Will work out to be 0. Epsilon r for gaseous dielectrics is almost equal to 1. So dP by d naught will work out to be 0. That means there is no polarization. dP is the measure of polarization. And this is how you conclude that there is no polarization activity in gaseous dielectrics. But if epsilon r, as you see it here, is more than 1, and it is much more than 1, the higher is the number of relative permittivity, more will be the polarization in the dielectric, and greater the capacitance, the value of capacitance formed by that particular dielectric. I hope you have been able to understand this well. Now, this quotient dP by d naught is known as susceptibility. Susceptibility, and it is given C of the capacitance, susceptibility of the dielectric. And you can say it is the quotient gives the polarization ability or the polarization capacity uh, of the dielectric dp by d naught, and the dp by d naught is known as the susceptibility of the dielectric. And yeah, you can imagine uh, the type of let's talk about the type of polarization. We did learn in the last lecture the two types of dielectrics, that is polar and non-polar dielectrics. We learn about it a little more in detail when we try to learn about the polarization mechanisms described. There are a number of polarization mechanisms, and I have tried to categorize three major types of polarization activity, and which distinguish actually the dielectric. The type of polarization activity takes place within a dielectric, it distinguishes itself with the other dielectric. So let's talk about first the type, that is displacement polarization, space charge or boundary surface polarization, and orientation polarization. Let's uh, uh, oh, I'll have to, not much is mentioned in our PPT here, but I'll explain it to you. The displacement polarization, it, the, yeah, see, we talked about the polar and non-polar dielectrics. Non-polar dielectrics do not have frozen or permanent dipoles. You can say. What is a dipole? Dipole is the concentration of like polarity uh, charges. The positive dipole could be there and the negative dipole could be there. And some of the dielectrics have inbuilt dipoles. That means even without applying any electric field across the dielectric, they always have a inbuilt dipoles. Dipoles may be formed on application of the electric field or potential across the dielectric. So the dielectrics which have inbuilt or frozen dipoles are known as polar dielectrics. Whereas the dielectrics which do not have frozen dipoles, but they may form dipoles under the influence of the applied electric field, they are non-polar. So the displacement polarization takes place in non-polar dielectrics, uh, and in the non-polar dielectrics, dipoles built only under the influence of the applied electric field. That is, uh, when you apply an electric field across a dielectric and dipoles are given rise, that is called displacement polarization. If there is displacement of charged particles within the dielectric by application of electric field, some energy will be drawn by the application of the electric field. So, and there is molecular, you can say, uh, um, activity within the dielectric, and they start forming dipoles. And that is called displacement polarization. The type of polarization is displacement polarization. Now, the space charge or boundary surface polarization. Due to applied electric field in some dielectrics, the charge carriers move towards the opposite polarity electrodes. The charge carriers within the dielectric move, obviously, if the positive polarity charge carrier within the dielectric, it would move towards the negative polarity electrode, and the negative polarity charge carriers would move towards the positive polarity electrode and form at the electrodes the concentration of the charged particles. At the positive electrode, the negative polarity charge carrier concentration, that is space charge. We have learned concentration of like polarity charge is space charge. So space charge uh, at the positive electrode, a negative space charge will be built, and at the negative electrode, a positive space charge will be built. These phenomenon are best understood when you apply DC voltage. It does happen with AC power frequency or alternating current also, but best to understand is when you apply DC. So the space charge formation at the boundary surface, that is the electrode, uh, is known as the space charge or boundary surface polarization activity. Uh, this also takes place in non-polar uh, dielectrics, non-polar dielectrics, the space charge or boundary surface polarization, because initially there is no pole, no concentration of like polarity charge. And the third type of polarization is the orientation polarization. What is orientation? I mean, the charge carriers orient themselves. That means they move in a certain fashion. And uh, this takes place uh, mainly in some liquids. Uh, this orientation takes place mainly in some liquid dielectrics. And in some liquid dielectrics which have frozen permanent dipoles. When the frozen permanent dipoles is there, what type of dielectric we have defined? We have defined them to be polar dielectrics. So the other two types of polarizations dominate on non-polar materials. The orientation polarization dominates on polar dielectrics, which have frozen dipoles, and the frozen dipoles exist even without application of the external potential across the dielectric. The polar asymmetry in molecular structure is there. That means in the molecular structure, there is a polar asymmetry exists in the polar dielectrics. That means the dipoles, you can say, what is dipole? Dipole is the asymmetry in molecular structure. And uh, uh, it is in the effect of field, you can say, yeah, let's try to understand this way. In the polar dielectrics, because the dipoles are there, there is an inbuilt or inherent electric field inside. Now you apply across the dielectric externally another field. So what will be the field within the dielectric? It will be the resultant between the inner field and the external field. the resultant field within the dielectric will be the resultant field given rise with the interaction between the inherent built field within the dielectric and the externally applied electric field. So that is orientation polarization, which dominates in polar dielectrics. One of the very uh, 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 important example of polar dielectric is nothing but water, simple water, when it is purified to the extent of behaving like a dielectric. Highly purified water has got, you can say, is a polar dielectric inbuilt frozen dipoles, and when you apply the field across water under that condition, the field within the water would be resultant form or resultant field given rise to by the inherent field within and the externally applied electric field. I hope you have, I have tried to explain to you well these types of orientation and space charge and displacement polarizations. These polarizations play a very important role uh, with regard to the total behavior of the dielectric. Yeah, let's now try to move. Uh, yeah, one thing you should never forget, the epsilon r is the measure of polarizability or polarizing capacity of the dielectric. We'll need it later, okay? Now, let's switch over to the next property of the dielectric, and that is the dielectric power loss in insulating materials. You can imagine, again, an example of a capacitor. When you capacitor, because capacitance is formed only because of the dielectric, presence of the dielectric. And the power losses in insulating materials are of two types. One, the active power loss, and another one, reactive power loss. I hope you understand. Active power loss, that is when the current is flowing in phase with the voltage. That is the active power loss. A simple example of active power loss is in the conductors. But in the dielectrics, there is some current flowing at a phase difference of 90 degrees leading the applied voltage, and that is the reactive power loss. So we will try to understand both the types of losses in the insulating materials, that is active and reactive power losses. When a voltage is applied across a dielectric, besides the capacitive charging current to charge the capacitor, which will be at 90 degrees to the applied voltage, that means it will be in phase conditions leading, the current in the capacitance will be leading by 90 degrees phase angle with respect to the voltage. So the capacitive charging current, real or active currents may also make their passage to flow through the dielectric. Once again, I'll read it out. When a voltage is applied across the dielectric, besides the capacitive charging current, which is at 90 degrees phase leading with respect to the voltage, besides this, real and active currents which are in phase with the applied voltage would also find passes through the dielectric or through the capacitors. So that means a capacitor would have active as well as reactive power losses. So we'll study that further. These currents not only depend upon the type of applied voltage, but also upon the frequency and magnitude of the applied voltage, and also the thermal conditions of the dielectric. The conductive currents through any dielectric, as we talked about a few minutes back, would very much depend upon the thermal conditions of the dielectric. Uh, yeah, this is nothing but measure of conductive current through the dielectric, and the conductive current magnitudes uh, depend upon not only the temperature of the dielectric, but also upon the magnitude of the applied voltage. Yeah, the yeah the conductive currents present in an insulating material determine its active as well as reactive power loss property. Each conductive current mechanism causes currents of different characteristic. Will different characteristic. What is meant here? The characteristic means what is the out of phase angle of that current with respect to the voltage. That means the phase angle, how much it is leading, uh, uh, because if the phase angle between the voltage and the current is zero, that means in phase with the voltage, it is the real power loss. But different types of currents are there which have different characteristics. That means they are out of phase with the applied voltage at different angles. And these currents contribute to the total dielectric current, that is I insulation, as you can see in the next uh, figure here. See, you are applying AC, let's say AC power frequency current to the dielectric. What does the dielectric form mainly? You can represent a dielectric with the capacitance, and as we learned, the dielectrics also very high DC resistance R. So you can represent a dielectric with two parameters in electrical engineering, that is resistance and capacitance. The total current drawn by the source or from the source is I insulation, which gets divided into IR total and IC total. This is wrongly made here. This is actually IC total. This is IC total here, and this is IR total. Towards resistance, IR total, and towards capacitance, IC total. So the I insulation is sum of the two currents. And as you can see in the phasor diagram of this, this is IR, and this is in phase with the voltage being applied. This is UAC, you can say, the phase angle of the voltage applied. And this is giving you IR total, and this is at 90 degrees IC total. So first thing, let's say here a capacitive charging current. These are the description of the different types of currents. the capacitive charging current IC, as you can see, that will be 90 degrees out of phase with the applied voltage. Then there may be in liquids, even in the solids, there may be some kind of a partial breakdown activity within the dielectric. And if it is present, it will also draw some magnitude of current from the source of the applied voltage. And the characteristic of PB, the partial breakdown current drawn from the source, is in this direction. It is capacitive, you can say dominating, but it also has a resistive component. The current also has a resistive component. Then, as we learned about the polarization activities going on within the dielectric, that will also draw some current from the applied voltage, the source of energy, and there may be all the three types of polarizations what we learned: displacement, boundary surface, and orientation polarization. And these current also are out of phase from the two types of current, that means the resistive and capacitive charging current. This is the typical characteristic of the polarization currents, the total polarization currents. And then you have some kind of a conductive activity, conductive currents. And conductive currents would be determined by the movement of electron, movement of ion, and movement of, you call it constant ion, and movement of limited ion currents, But the conductive current depend upon the DC resistance, which is of the order of hundreds and thousands of mega ohm, and this conductive current is in phase with the DC resistance offered by the dielectric. That means it is in phase with the applied voltage to the dielectric, the resistance, the current through the resistance offered by the dielectric, DC resistance of RDC, you can say. So this is the total insulation current through the dielectric. Now it has two components, one in phase with the applied voltage, one at 90 degrees out of phase with the applied voltage. This angle, as you can see, is the phi angle, what we call it to be the total current, phase angle difference between the applied voltage and the total current is phi. That is also the power factor angle, you can say. And 90 minus phi angle is known as delta. Now, the delta has been chosen for this angle here, which is 90 minus the power factor angle. In fact, delta is very small, as unlike as it is shown here. It has been shown to something like 45 degrees. It is wrong, but just for clarification, it is shown here like that. But delta angle is very, very small, which determines the tan of delta will give you the component of the total insulation current, the component of I insulation multiplied by tan of delta will give you the component of the current in phase with the applied voltage here. So that delta angle, this delta angle actually determines the active power loss in the dielectric. So we will analyze this active power loss in the dielectrics next time. and because tan of delta, as you can say, is the measure of active power loss by reactive power loss. If you go back to this yeah, a tan of delta is the current in the resistive to IR total, you can say, uh, divided by the reactive, that is IC total, that gives you IR total divided by IC total gives you tan of delta. So it is a tan of delta is a quotient, or is a ratio between the active to reactive power loss, and these are given in the phasor diagram in this way. And the total capacitive conductive current IC would be given, IC total would be given by, as you know, the applied voltage divided by the capacitive reactance, as you know, by the capacitive reactance. So IC total is omega Cu, and the active power loss PAC is given by, PAC is equal to the active power loss will be given by omega Cu square into tan delta, because omega Cu into tan delta will give you the IR total. Omega Cu multiplied by tan delta will give you the IR total, total current, total active current through the dielectric, multiplied by the applied voltage, current multiplied by the voltage, gives you the power loss, active power loss, when you apply AC power frequency to the dielectric. So we will analyze it further and learn in the next lecture tomorrow. Thank you very much.